Welcome to Learning in Med School 101, where I briefly talk about some key learning concepts relevant to any medical student. Some of these come from longer talks I've given elsewhere, and some are new. Today, I'm talking about how there can be a lot of bad advice given to struggling medical students. I'm going to run through 15 examples of bad advice. This comes from my lecture on learning foundations and sometimes references how we fixed these issues in our Stat Med study skills class. But regardless, I think foundationally speaking, it's helpful to know what someone like me, a learning specialist with almost 20 years of experience working with and helping struggling medical students and physicians and those in related fields, thinks qualifies as bad or frustrating advice. When we struggle, we'll often go to one of our peers who are doing really well, and we'll ask her, like, hey, what are you doing? And she might be like, yeah, study like me. But again, what works for her might not work for you. And they're not experts in the way that the reading brain works or in teaching or in pedagogy or in the way that the reading brain processes text-based information. But they might try to just graft what works for them onto you, not factoring in the fact that you might be wired differently, There's all kinds of like old advice rattling around out there. Like, make sure you see the material 3 to 5 times. If you can see it 5 times before the test, you're going to do well. And you're really struggling to see it 2 times or 4 times. And you're like, well, I'm struggling. They said see it 5 times. I saw it 3 times. Therefore, the fault is on me for not seeing it more times. And then you try to see it more times, whatever see means. See can largely be a very passive activity. Reviewing, looking over, and then it becomes like you're just checking these boxes. That's not really giving you cognitive control of the learning. It just becomes this race. And again, I think that advice is often not great. Again, if any of these pieces of advice I'm going to throw up here work for someone, that is great, wonderful. The problem is every single example I'm going to throw up here, I have heard from multiple people over the last 10 or 15 years saying this was told to me and it didn't work and it really frustrated me or it really hurt me or I spent all this time chasing it, the idea of like the myth of perfectly condensed notes. Again, somebody might do this and it works well for them. Maybe the person that makes them and it works for them, the act of creating and making, that's good for their process. Maybe somebody else just takes somebody's condensed notes and they can just read them 3 to 5 times and it works for them. Well, great for them, but that might just be how their brain works. But so many people come to me saying, if I can just figure out how to condense these notes, then I'll unlock my ability. And I don't really believe in that. If it works, great, but that's not a skill that we overall teach because I think it's all this illusion of productivity. You make the thing, but then what are you doing with the thing? Sometimes we see, find the right study group. Like, look, if at the end of the day, we go through this whole class and I'm like, good luck to you all. And by the way, I hope you find the right study group. Some people might have really thrived in other environments with study groups. Some people might thrive in med school with study groups. But the idea that your outcome and your fate hinges on finding the right study group is nauseating. Like, no, you don't. I mean, if you find a study group, that's cool, that's fine. But everything that we teach in this class should make you an autonomous learner. If you want to work within a group and it works for you in a healthy, productive, efficient way, great. But I don't believe that you need to find the right study group to be successful, okay? But I know a lot of times people are sort of told to find the right study group. And then it's this idea of like the universe is going to dictate your fate by finding the right study group or not. And it's not the case. Let me give you some tips. People call me all the time asking for some tips. Just give me some study tips. I cannot give study tips. I mean, I can, but I believe in wholesale end-to-end systems, study systems, time management systems, test-taking systems. And then you need to install those in the learner step by step by step by step. Tips are just enough to frustrate at this level, okay? And again, if tips are going to work for somebody, again, great. But that's not the business we're in. And I think that the stakes are too high at this level in med school to say, just give me the tips and hopefully that's going to be enough to get me where I need to be. So here we have maybe somebody come in, she represents more of a learning specialist, a resource counselor. Some of them are great, some of them are not so great, some of them are terrible. It runs a spectrum like in any field, right? A lot of bad advice out there can be represented here, like do more practice questions. Some people can learn from practice questions, some people can't. Full stop, okay? And I'm going to talk later in these units about the bottom up learners versus the top down learners, low structure builders, high structure builders. This sort of explains why some people can learn from practice questions and some can't. But at the end of the day, what we need to understand is not everyone can learn from practice questions, okay? Maybe where the practice questions fit on your continuum of where you are learning matters more for you than for your peer, okay? But the idea of like everybody just being able to plug into practice questions and learn from practice questions is a major fallacy. Make a schedule. A lot of resource people will use scheduling as like a punishment tool. Like, did you make a schedule? No, I didn't make a schedule. Well, you're struggling, you didn't make a schedule. But you're saying, well, yeah, I make a schedule, but then I fall off the schedule and I feel bad and I spend all this time making the schedule, but I'm not getting any corrective behaviors on it and all this stuff. I think that making schedules is actually a very important thing for med students to do. Not for everybody, but we don't know who is going to benefit from it and who's not. Most people do not want to make a schedule, but it's got to be something that you're using as a tool with feedback mechanisms built in to help you get a sense of where you're being efficient and where you're not. So scheduling can be a good thing, but I think it's often taught wrong and used wrong. And we're not taught how to build and profit from schedules as professional students because we don't value these things. But we can do this. We can do this, and we're going to do this in the class. Study harder. What does that mean? What does that mean? Are you studying hard enough? Am I studying hard enough? I need to study harder. Again, without breaking down what this amorphous term of study means, I don't know how we're supposed to get into this. We're going to demystify all this. We're going to take this concept of study and break it apart and build in all these sub-steps along the way that are flexible, and there's various ways to go about it. And again, try to understand what this gets into. But again, I think oftentimes it's leveled as an accusation of you're struggling. We think you're smart. Maybe you're not smart enough. Maybe you're not studying hard enough. That's like telling the sprinter to run faster or the painter to paint better. It's not useful advice, and I'm not interested in useless advice. Oh, God. Use your learning style. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I don't like learning auditorily. I need to be a visual learner. All this stuff, we've all been told about this. We all know about this. My daughter who's in high school knows about these things. It's a bad paradigm. The research doesn't support it. We've all been sort of sold this whole thing. And really, if anything, what we don't want to do is only operate in a single modality. We want to operate in multiple modalities. I want to bring in visual. I want to bring in kinesthetic. I want to bring in auditory. I want to diversify and make my learning diversified as I'm working through it. And all the stat med skills are going to get into this. But let's just say I do prefer visual learning. Well, that might be the easiest way for me to learn. And so if I only learn through a visual modality, that might make things too easy. It's like I'm at the gym and I'm working out a little bit. I'm like, ooh, I'm starting to sweat. I better stop doing these reps so my biceps don't get too tired. So I've just stopped like the actual act of building the bicep, right? You got to be careful with some of those analogies of learning and physical exercise, but that it does hold up. We actually want to engage in what are called desirable difficulties and get into sort of different aspects of exertion and effort and whatnot. And learning styles it's just not something we want to build any sort of foundation on, okay? And then, pre-read or pre-watch a lecture. Many people have been given this advice. They've tried it. They don't really get any benefit from it. They're like, what am I supposed to do? And they feel guilty for not doing this thing that's not giving them benefit. And it becomes an ugly dynamic. I think there is absolutely extreme value to be found in doing something prior to reading or prior to watching a lecture. But that has to have a very specific structure and goal and bandwidth. And we're going to get into that. It's one of the key skills we teach we call frameworking. But just pre-reading or pre-watching or re-watching videos, no, we're not really going to, we're not obviously going down that road, all right? But again, that's a lot of advice that has been given to people. It's something you can tell people to do, something they can spend their time doing, but then not get benefit from. And then this guy is supposed to represent, I guess, like a preceptor, a dean, whatever. Somebody who's advising you guys, is like review. In other words, like see the stuff again, see it again, repeat. Review is almost a bad word to me. Like review often ends up meaning like looking over stuff passively and seeing it in a passive manner, and it gives you a false sense of familiarity. And I just think it's a dangerous thing. We're going to sort of try to blow that concept up here in the next few days and really get into what we should be orienting ourselves toward and how we should be spending our time. The advice of hit the gym, do Anki, figure out if this is what you really want. Oh, God. So hit the gym, of course. Exercise is a good thing, but what I heard a lot over the years is like people say go to the gym, but I don't have time to go to the gym because I'm studying every minute of every day. Well, that gets into the way we're studying, the way we're planning, the way we're tracking, okay? So if we fix all the stuff on the study side and the planning side, that will give you time to go to the gym. But the idea that like you have to go to the gym to then fix the other things, which is often what's being told to you, is not great. The idea of Anki is it's like a software that automates sort of note cards, detail-based skill drill type stuff. There are some good things that Anki does, and Anki does work with a very specific set of the med student population. But like learning with practice questions, it's not for everyone. And what I've seen is that people are trying to jam Anki either onto other people or students who are struggling see other students using Anki and they want to use it, but they're not wired for it. And I'm going to get into this specifically later in this unit, why Anki is not for everyone. And then, of course, one of the more painful things people have heard over the years is like, you're in the middle of the semester, you are struggling, you're just trying to keep your head above water, and they're like, is this really what you want? You need to really figure that out. It's like this passive-aggressive way of saying, like, if you're struggling, maybe you've gotten to the wrong place, and that's a really painful thing to hear. And then also, like, of course, the old maintain a positive mindset. Like, the reason you're struggling is you're not positive enough. And again, that's a tough pill to swallow. Like, I'm not a cheerleader. We're not going to be telling you, I'm not going to be like, believe in yourself. Because that's not what I would want to hear if I were struggling or looking for better ways to unlock my ability. I want methodology. I want tools that I can then use to the best of my ability so that I can master the individual tools, and that'll unlock overall performance, and then I can see what I can do. And that's kind of where then I'll feel more positive. So that's another look at 15 examples of the kinds of bad advice I've seen given to struggling medical students and students in related fields like veterinarians, PharmDs, and PAs. I hope this helps you understand you're not alone if you're struggling. Understanding these issues with bad advice can be an important step to solving your issues with study methodology and performance in med school and on boards. Thanks for watching.